And we have Waikīkī Community Center, Kōkua Kalihi Valley, Parents and Children Together, as well as Hawaii Data Collaborative. And as you notice, the meeting is being recorded. And so we invite you to share this with others afterwards, because this is a community effort and it is something that we want all people to be interested in and able to participate in. For the audience, we do have a feature that provides a live transcript function. If you would like to hide that function, you are able to, but we do like to have that on there for anyone who has any accessibility issues. If you are on a cell phone, however, on a Zoom app, you aren't able to hide it. But for those who would like to, by all means, you may. Just hit the live transcript button and hide subtitles. During the presentation, you'll be able to put questions into the Q&A box. So feel free, if questions come up or things that you'd like to have addressed, we will have time with all of the panelists at the end to go over any kind of questions that you may have. And we invite you at any time to drop it in there. So with that said, again, I want to welcome everybody here. And as we start out, we want to get a sense of the participants that are here today. We have a very large number of people who are interested, and we would like to find out where you come from. We're putting a poll up right now. So if you could take just a second and select which industry you come from. Because ALICE is such a collaborative initiative, we are looking for participation from across sectors, and our panelists would love to know what areas you yourselves are working in. So I'll give just about 5 more seconds to go ahead and select your industry or your primary industry. And with that said, today we do have a very large number of nonprofit folks joining us. Over half of you come from nonprofit, but we do have a good mix as well, coming from business, education, financial, government, healthcare, and from our philanthropic sector. So welcome. We're really excited to have you here, and we will go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and open up our first presentation for today. So again, welcome. Of course, we're all here to answer that question. Who is ALICE? As we know, ALICE isn't just one person, ALICE is everyone. And ALICE is actually an acronym. It stands for Asset Limited, Income Constrained, Employed. And these are the individuals who are working often multiple jobs, but just simply don't have enough to get by. There's not enough for a safety net if something comes up, like an unexpected car repair or an emergency home repair or an unexpected illness. And even as hard as our residents are working, the income is falling short and they're not able to afford the basic cost of living here. AUW has really invested heavily in the ALICE initiative, and we've put out 2 reports. The most recent one was in 2020, evaluating statewide, county by county, what it looks like for people and what they're going through. This report was released prior to COVID, and at that time, at the beginning of 2020, based on the data available, 42% of our households in Hawaii were actually living at ALICE or below. What we found too were some really critical trends. 1, the cost of living has been increasing for ALICE households. 2, worker vulnerability has been growing, but wages have stagnated. And the number of ALICE households is on the rise. So we're going to look a little bit more closely at that to give a sense today of the baseline and why this work is so important. First of all, as you can see, our level of poverty in the state has stayed fairly level. But as far as the ALICE population, the Great Recession had an enormous impact, as you can see. And we had a significant amount of the population that grew to ALICE and never recovered. As well, the cost of living has not kept pace. The Consumer Price Index shows the difference between the growth in the expenses for people to afford what we call the ALICE Essentials Index. The essentials are exactly just that. It's housing, childcare, food, transportation, healthcare, technology, taxes, and other miscellaneous expenses. These aren't expenses for going out to eat. It's not entertaining. It's not going to the movies. These are the basics to get by. And when you look at those costs on there, which are based on research very closely with our research committee, you can see that these are not expensive or lavish lifestyles. But the thing that's really important to note is that for a family of 4, it takes $90,828 just to be able to afford those survival basics. Minimum wage in our state is $10.10 an hour, but for a retail sales employee, who is one of our most common industries that we have representation, even at a wage of $13.03 an hour, which is the average retail salesperson wage, the full-time employment rate for a year.
Interrupt, Lisa. I'm sorry. You're not in presentation view, so everybody can see all of your.
Well, thank you. Sorry about that. Let's carry on. Okay, with that said, with our average of $13.03 per hour for retail sales, that is not even enough for one full-time employee to afford the cost of living. The average that a household of 1 needs is $31,000 a year. And for a family of 2 working individuals taking care of a family, 2 people working full-time at that average rate does not even come close to making ends meet. So as you can see here, the number of jobs that we have in this state varies substantially. With high wage jobs identified as people able to support the cost of living, they are at a significantly disparate number as compared to our medium and low wage jobs. Low wage jobs are those ones I was just talking about that don't support a family, even with 2 full-time wage earners in those low wages. And incidentally, that is the only sector that we've seen growth in. This gives you a sense too of the where those jobs are located. For the people that we call the maintainers, these are the people that are working in healthcare. They are answering phones. They are our cashiers. They are our teachers. They are our construction workers. The majority of our jobs are located in these areas. However, 50 to 54% of them pay less than $20 an hour. And again, $20 per hour is the rate that people need to be making to be able to survive at the survival ALICE index. For those wages of people that are the scientists, the engineers, the university professors, those are the higher paying jobs, but you can see the proportion of those is extremely low. And when we talk about those 42% of households, remember again that this is prior to COVID, but it's not an equal representation across the population. 87% of our youth, 25 years and younger, are ALICE or below. Mothers who are single mothers with children in the household, 80% of those are living in ALICE, 61% of single fathers are, and 53% of our Native Hawaiian population is. The disparities across the demographics are huge. And of course, this detail is available in greater information within the ALICE report. But keep in mind that 42% was prior to COVID. At this point in time, 59% of our population is estimated to have fallen into ALICE or below. And like the previous recession, we don't expect that this economic shock to recover fully or quickly. By the end of 2020, we expect an additional 35,000 households fell into ALICE, and like the previous recession, many of them never recover. So the question is, with all of this enormous challenge and burden, what can we do? The thing that Aloha United Way did was start the ALICE Fund. This is a fund in which we are investing in nonprofit agencies that are developing and implementing those programs to help ALICE. For the individuals and the organizations you're going to hear from today, these were some of the first agencies that we invested in to help introduce some of these new programs. We're looking at financial instability and tackling those root causes. We know that we need to bring people together. We need our resources to be sustainable. We need to find solutions that are going to make our community stronger and more resilient. Collective impact is what we're identifying as the real key and the real critical component to that. In sort of an academic lens, collective impact is looking at these 5 critical conditions. And this is what all of our grantees, including the ones you'll hear from today, are working from. 1, we have a common agenda of what the problem is. We know that Alice is the problem, and we are sharing the vision for how to change. 2, we're sharing measurements and we're collecting data so that we're not just looking at outcomes, we're looking at what we want the goals for the community to be. All of our activities are mutually reinforcing, so we're working together and identifying problems and solutions together, using continuous communication to build trust and supporting all of this through Aloha United Way, which is the backbone, bringing people together, convening resources, and helping organizations to participate together. Our vision for this collective is that we have everyone, all people, organizations, sectors working together to create meaningful change. We want to see more people making a living wage. We want to increase opportunities that provide people with financial stability, and we want to improve social capital. Ultimately, by doing that, we want to see the number of households that are Alice decrease. We want to reduce the duration of time that people are Alice, and we want to create clear and easily accessible pathways to greater economic prosperity. This systems map was part of that critical theory for our collective impact work. We know that no one can do it alone, and everything that takes place in one system has a push or pull effect on everything else. What we do need is everybody working together to hit that tipping point. So looking at this systems map, we know that there's a few ways that we can influence that system. 1 is through financial literacy skills, helping people get educated and get out of debt. 2, improving and upgrading people's soft skills so that they can have upward mobility in their career. 3, we want to look at earning power, where there's opportunities to help accrue wealth. And 4, we want to look at the cost of living, helping people to not have to work 2 or 3 jobs just to be able to survive. So as far as what's next, this is the vision. We are working together using systems maps and community engagement to inform our work. We continue to learn and adapt how we address these inequities and work on upward mobility for our population. We're putting Alice front and center in the community conversations, including the one you're at today, looking at those critical social and economic development issues. We're forging new partnerships, and that's why we hope that you joined us today to talk about how you can get behind these opportunities for Alice and help us align our community and philanthropic resources so that every family and individual is thriving. Community is at the heart of it. You are part of our community. We can't do it alone. Thank you for being here. And I'd like to introduce our next speaker. We have Nick Redding, who is joining us from the Hawaii Data Collaborative. Welcome, Nick.
Hello, everybody. Thanks so much, Lisa. It's great to be here. Let me get my screen shared and I'll dive right in. Okay, so I don't go too far. Am I on the right screen? So everybody's looking at what I hope they are?
Yes, you are.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. All right. So the Hawaii Data Collaborative, we're a nonprofit that's focused on partnering to make meaning from data for solving Hawaii's pressing challenges. And I don't think it's too hard to argue with this group that Alice and the situation many of our families find themselves in is a pressing challenge for Hawaii. We started this project with a focus on the data itself. So in taking on the challenges such as Alice, we focused really on just where's the data and can we get it all in one place and can we make it available to folks in compelling ways. And we offered visualizations and such to make these indicators of well-being, whether it's housing, transportation, shelter, health, et cetera, available. And again, a big impetus for this work was all the conversations around Alice and the multidimensionality of the struggles of many of our families and communities. We did this, and there was a lot of interest and excitement, but not a lot of uptake. And that forced us to take a step back and try to understand a little better what was actually needed. And when we looked at it and we looked at the questions we were getting and the help we were being asked to provide, we started to see the bigger picture of why data actually matters. We need data to understand what's happening and what to do about it, but we only can do that when that data becomes evidence. And so that means the data itself is relevant to the questions we have about what's going on around us. And even if we get to better evidence, that evidence needs to align with the decision-making need. Those who are trying to understand how to respond and do the work that they do better, informed by data, need that data to be translated into evidence. And then, of course, we want to make better decisions so that we achieve better outcomes. Again, we need data to help us understand those outcomes, help us keep track of where we're going and hold ourselves accountable if we start to not meet the goals that we have for ourselves. We also started to think a little more clearly about like what is good data and how do we understand that from the perspective of partners who are trying to bring data into their decision-making process. Fundamentally, it's about, can we get the data? One question we asked ourselves is, can I get the data I need given what I'm trying to work on? And that could either be, does the data exist at all? Or the data exists, but it's sitting somewhere, maybe within a state agency or something and not made available. But that's only the starting condition for that. What's just as important is the extent to which we can actually use the data the way we want to. Is the data shared in a format that works for us? Is it machine readable? Does it have the metadata needed to translate that data to our use case as opposed to the use case that originally prompted the data collection or the report or whatever we found? And then lastly, the question of can I, as decision maker, make meaning from the data? And that's fundamentally a capacity kind of challenge. If I have the data and the data is able to be used in the way as I would want, I still need to be able to do that. And whether it's I have the capacity, I have the time, I have the expertise, I have the right people at the table. These are all fundamental questions to ask of our data sources. Not just can I get it and can I use it, but do I have what I need to make meaning from that data to address the questions I have and make the decisions I need to make? A real quick reflection on COVID, I think, is helpful in this. When COVID hit, we found ourselves all really quickly becoming armchair experts in epidemiology and trying to understand COVID. We saw a real opportunity here because the state, in working to address the spread of the virus directly, at first wasn't so quick to make sure the utility of the data that they were collecting on the spread of the virus, hospitalizations and deaths, et cetera, was shared for broader use. And so originally it was data tables and news briefs, and we decided to build on that and make sure the data was being pulled down and made available for broader utility for those that we were talking with who were modelers or who the business community and others who were deciding, really we needed to understand where the trends were going to understand what they were going to do in response. And then we went from there to make visualizations and such so that we could start to sync up the data we had with the meaning of that data. And if you recall, we were talking about flattening the curve and when are we going to have the second surge and all those things like that. That's an example of how we can move from not just can I get the data, but does the data have utility for my decision need, and can I make meaning from it in a ready way so that I can move forward. We take all these perspectives into the post-COVID challenge. In parallel to the challenges we had with COVID data, we were also getting lots of questions about, hey, can you help us understand what's happening with households? Even before COVID with Alice and everything we're talking about today, households were struggling. And then we had a sudden economic shock. And the data that we've used to understand Alice, you might have even noticed some of the data that Lisa was presenting was dated 2018. That data, while very good and usually very helpful to us because we don't typically have major changes and trends over time, is good enough for us to understand how we can be really helpful for families often. But when you have a second economic shock, we're in a different situation. And so a lot of the questions that were coming to us weren't at the macroeconomic level, where we did have good support from UHERO and Debit and others to understand the macro level trends. For those working to work directly with families, they wanted to know, what are families struggling with? Where are they? What do they need? And are they getting the help they need from existing programs? Because we were also scrambling to just deploy resources to help them as best as we could. And so there's a few things that we did about that in the moment, and then also decided to work on going forward to make sure that we have the data flows we need to address these kinds of questions that come up around how to help families, where we really need to fill in some of the gaps in our existing data and also make sure that the timeliness of the data keeps pace with decision need. One of those, and please don't get overwhelmed by everything that's going on the page. You can find the details on this on our website at hawaiidata.org. One of those tools that we deployed is something called the Hawaii Population Model. And without going into detail, essentially what this does is allows us to take existing census data, publicly available census data, and build modeled estimates of that data to meet decision need. The decision need at the time was, what has the impact of the economic shock been on Hawaii's families? So we were actually able to model forward census data to say, here's what the census data, if you were to go to pull down the tables or go look at census data, here's what it would look like today, reflecting today's economic realities, as best estimated as we can. And we did have timely sources like unemployment data, economic indicators, et cetera, that we could pull into the model to update where we think families were struggling, either by geography. So some partners were interested in specific census tracts or zip codes, or by demographic, for example, those really wanting to understand how Native Hawaiian population was affected by the economic shock. And so that's one tool that we provided. And it's the 59% number that Lisa mentioned in terms of Alice likely today. That's where that came from. But this doesn't directly assess household experience. It is still modeled estimates. So we're not actually reaching out to households and finding out what's going on with them. We're just doing reasonable estimates going forward. And it also struggles with validity the more we move forward from that baseline, as we continue forward from the economic shock without still having good baseline data to build from. So another opportunity we soon recognized with United Way was their 211 system. Here's a system that is there to respond to household need. People call this number to get help with the things they need help with. Naturally, more people needed help and more people were calling 211. And that gave us some good indicators of what people might be struggling with and where, because we asked things like zip code, et cetera. Unfortunately, because of the extra load on the phone system, we did need to do some work in the back end to get the system able to handle the extra load, but that did also give us an opportunity to build out the data capacities of this system. And so now we're really happy to say that we've got a back end that can keep pace with the need, resource need of families that are reaching out, but is also much better suited for us to be able to harvest the data potential from this platform and really have a week-to-week sense of how expressed need is shifting as we move forward with our economic recovery and post-COVID reality. However, that is expressed need. And so what we've also seen is this opportunity to have a way to reach out to families and find out what's going on with them. That's why we're developing something we're calling Ohana Pulse. Ohana Pulse is a text-based survey platform that's designed to be light touch and deployable both locally and across the state. So it's designed to be a tool that supports partners such as those on the webinar with me today and others probably tuning in, as well as United Ways and others that are working to support partners on the ground, to be able to hear from families in a timely way so that we can really get a month-to-month sense of how needs may be shifting. And also when we see new events happening, being able to quickly pulse and find out what might be different as a result of that. One other thing that I don't have a slide for that I'll mention is there's quite a robust conversation happening right now in the health data community, the health information community around social determinants of health. And we've been deeply involved in those conversations to understand how we can get those social determinants data flowing in our health data system. So when individuals are seeking health assistance with health related needs, also assessing the extent to which their social needs are there and whether there's opportunities to address those, housing situation, food, et cetera. That's a concept that's gaining a lot of traction. And again, much like Ohana Pulse and 211, has an opportunity to give us more timely, relevant data around household need and how those needs are shifting across the state. What I'll end on today is we spent a lot of last year working to learn what's happening in terms of the data situation and really wanting to, we were getting such a sense of it from our own work and our work with partners, but also wanting to reach out to others that we hadn't had a chance to work with to ask them, you know, what is going on in terms of your ability to access the data you need to do what you need to do in the state, and what would be better? What would better look like? We took our own understanding and impressions and learnings from the work that we did with partners, as well as what we heard from others, and put that into something we call the Hawaii Data Landscape Report, and that you can find that on our website as well. And what that's really helped us understand is more systemically how we can start to address the data challenges that affect all of us in the work that we do, and how we can start to work together to make sure we have more of the data we need to move forward. And the main insight from this is that there are actually two levels of which we should think about having the data we need to solve the pressing challenges that we're faced with, such as Alice. On the one side, there's data capacity. That comes down to the data gaps that I've talked about and the timeliness of that, and the actionable evidence that flows from data, the data that's collected for a purpose of informing decision-making, and also the role the government data plays in that, and government data practices and their systems, and what might be, what opportunities might be there. But there's also something we're calling data culture, which is the extent to which data-informed decision-making and responsiveness and understanding starts to become normal, starts to become expected. It starts to become something we all value and can build off of each other to grow, so that we can hear from households, we can use that data, we can move that back, and then we can expect it from decision makers. We can expect to be able to make big decisions about what to do about these pressing challenges in a way that are data-driven, and be able to move forward with an understanding based on that, and correct as we get more data and build our understanding from there. So if these concepts are interesting to you, if better data is interesting to you, if better evidence for better decisions and better outcomes is interesting to you, I think you would find this report really interesting. And overall, I look forward to hearing from any and all of you who are interested in partnerships around household need and the data that'll support addressing this really important challenge. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nick. We are going to offer another opportunity for people to share a little information with us. Thank you for those who have joined us. I'm gonna going to share another question. We're interested in knowing who of you today are interested in Alice for particular reasons, and what's bringing you here. So I'm going to give you about 30 seconds here to select an answer. And while you're doing that, encourage you to gather any questions that you might have from Nick's presentation regards to data and collaboration, and in terms of the partnership opportunities, and go ahead and drop that into our Q&A, which we'll answer as we get to the end of the session today. I'll give you folks just a couple more seconds to answer. Okay. So for those of you that are here today, looks like some of the main reasons that you are here, although very few have been or are currently Alice, we do have a large amount of people who are looking for more information. We also have people that are providing services or employment to people that are Alice and want to know what AUW and our partners are doing so that they can be part of the solution. It's really exciting to know that a full 60% of you want to be part of that. And of course, that is exactly why we're here. And we are about to hear more from our partners. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Merlita Compton, who's the Director of Elder Care for Kōkua Kalihi Valley. Welcome, Merlita.
Well, there we go. Aloha, everyone. Thank you, AW, for having us today. Our presentation is about strengthening resilience of Alice elders and caregivers in Kalihi. I want to share a little background about Kōkua Kalihi Valley Comprehensive Family Services. In short, KKV. KKV is one of the federally qualified community health centers in Hawaii. We are located in Kalihi Valley, and KKV has been providing health and social services for 49 years in our community. We serve a highly diverse population with 20 languages and dialects, and work out of 9 locations through the valley, including the 2 largest public housing communities in the state. Our project overview is allowed us to pilot test new innovative programs, starts the recruitment and regarding. So before, can you use the wrong slide? This funding opportunity helped us to test new workforce development program and to provide opportunities to become a certified nurse's aide and to become a respite worker with providing a variety of support for the training. Our target populations are Kalihi residents and low income, a number of immigrants. Many are newly arrived from the Asian Pacific Basin region. Many are ALICE and virtually all job seekers. There are key programs, activities is our job training for the certified nurses aide offered by the healthcare training and career consultant. They're located in Kalihi, and respite training offered by KKV. Another activity is a financial literacy training. It covers training for earning, savings, spending, budgeting, and protecting their financial. Okay, so another one is mentorship, soft skills building, and each of the ALICE worker is mass and experienced case managers provides a hands-on guidance and supervision. It's also a system for job search and hiring. Toward the end of the serving period, we provide trainings, and the ALICE workers will review the job opening opportunities with the mentor, like we practice interviewing. So this program is very innovative. It starts the recruitment and registering. Before registering the ALICE client, we screen them and reviewing the needs and fill out all the required documents. Once they pass the screening, they register into the ALICE program. First, we assign the mentor, and each of the ALICE client will have their own personal mentor, and no mismatch pair so far. Then we offer the training. We train the clients in respite worker first to help them build their confidence. We gave the certified nurses aide training for those who's interested in advancing their skills. For those who are ready, they work with their own mentor to prepare for the job interview. And for those not ready, we provide the training, hands-on training for them, and they're luckily be hired by the KKV temporarily. After the 12 months serving, the clients we reassess to get feedback from them. As an organization, we reviewed the findings and discussed how to sustain the program in the future. Michio, my colleague, Michio Tomioka, will provide more details regarding our outcomes from our participation in the program. Here comes Michio.
Hi, everyone. So KKV used the data to plan and improve and redesign services and programs. And this project collected data on demographic and program impact and economic well-being of clients we served. And as Melita mentioned, this is a new innovative project that we started. So we have started very small scale. So we have served 25 clients so far. And this slide, slide shows the demographic of the clients. And the mean age of the client was 63 years old, and nearly half of them were 60s. And majority of them were female, and also they are Filipino. And average monthly income was about $1,300, and more than half of the clients heard about the program from their friends. Next slide, please. So this is the snapshot of the project impact, and we asked how much the clients are satisfied with each part of the project. And look at the left, that's training. More than half of the clients indicated that they are extremely satisfied with the training. And one said, I felt more skilled and helped me to understand all about my task through the training. And second one is work experience. And 60% of clients extremely satisfied with the work experience. And here's the one comments from the client. The work experience opportunity help her to interact with elders who need help. And third area we look at is access to resources. So 45% of clients were extremely satisfied with the resources that we provided. It was a little bit lower than other parts of the training program component. And it may be reflecting that they prefer gain skills and knowledge through personal interactions. And one of the clients described, I feel secured in times of financial crisis by receiving resources and information. And mentorship, 90% were extremely satisfied with the mentorship. It shows how important to have personal mentor to advance their careers. And the client said, my mentor listened to my concerns and encouraged me to take things in a positive way. Next slide, please. So we also look at their budget change. After the 12 months of service, on average, clients' income has increased by $1,450 per month. But we are not sure whether it's a good sign or bad sign. It seems like they spend less money on food-related items. And we also saw the positive health and behavioral change among the clients. The number of clients who reported poor or fair health has decreased, and more clients felt excellent of their health. And they also showed an increased number of healthy days and decreased depressive days. The resilience score, we look at the resilience level, and it has increased, which means that they build a stronger resilience over time. We also saw 8% increase in their saving, and 30% clients found a job outside the KKV. Next slide. Melita? You are muted.
Okay, so we have a list of lessons learned during this pandemic. We feel that this project can be expanded to serve more Kalihi. The pandemic created both challenges and opportunities. We were offered extra training and secured extra supplies with those PPEs. There was increased needs in in-home respite. KKV was able to hire more. And there's logistically challenges in administering the program. Because of the pandemic, how do we keep them stay social distancing or engagement? So the job opportunities are available, but it has been really a challenge. There was a challenge with transportation. Many of our Alice clients not able to drive, and there was also a big issues about technology. There are lack of computer skills. But despite of all these challenges, we were fortunate to be able to continue the program even with the pandemic challenges. So mahalo is there.
Thank you very much, Merlita and Michio. We really appreciate it. Next, we want to introduce Caroline Hayashi, who is the Executive Director for Waikīkī Community Center.
There you go. Good afternoon. I'm just going to share my screen here. So I'm from Waikīkī Community Center, and our mission is to care for our kupuna, kiki, and community as Ohana, and we've been doing that for over 40 years now. I actually want to talk about collective impact and collaboration through the lens of a person, a client. I want to tell you Salitha's story. Salitha came to us. This is Salitha. She's a very vibrant, active, hardworking, positive, sweet 84-year-old. She came to us about a year ago, actually a year and a half ago now, terrified that she was going to become homeless when her rent was suddenly increased by $400 a month. And Miss Salitha has worked all her life in fairly low wage jobs. So she has a pretty modest Social Security income, which she supplements through a part-time work as a caregiver. And she had a couple $1,000s in savings, but due to the rental increase, she really could only, her savings would only last for a few more months, you know, maybe like for at the most 5-6 months. And so she was very worried and stressed, to say the least. She did not know how to go about finding an alternative because she did have quite affordable housing where she lived for a long time. So we started the process of assisting Salitha. And one thing I want to say is that Salitha's case story is kind of typical in that often when there is somebody in a little bit of an urgent situation or a crisis, there is often, most of the time, no perfect solution permanent solution in the time frame that's required. And that is especially true with housing issues. So this is I just wanted to do this sort of illustrative chart, and this is probably just a fraction of the different issues and individuals and organizations and institutions that actually supported Salitha's journey to stability. And I'm happy to report she's actually in stable, affordable housing now, but it did take us about 1.5 years to get there. In between, we had to find temporary solutions, short and medium-term solutions. Also along this journey, so actually helping is not, stabilizing is a process, right? It's not a single event. And along this journey or this process, we also came across several other challenges and issues, which we were able to draw resources from different parts of the community to help her with. We actually helped her raise her employment income by finding her employment that raised her wages per hour. The housing, like I said, we found a couple of temporary solutions. One was, and there's this woman pictured here, Chieko, that she's with. This was a temporary solution for a roommate. Chieko started experiencing memory issues and needed some help. We were able to match them. They became actually very good friends. It's kind of a heartwarming story. And we used the Senior Companion Program, which is this federally funded program, to give Salitha a small stipend for the care for the things she was helping Chieko with. And that was a little bit of a supplement in income as well, in addition to her new employment. We also helped her with medical issues. She needed new glasses, which she hadn't been able to afford. We helped her with some grant sources to get new glasses. She had food security issues. We helped her to enroll in SNAP, and she also utilized our own Waikīkī Community Center Emergency Food Bank. We also helped her with technology access and training, which was especially important during the pandemic. So that's sort of a holistic, this is, people are, holistic, right? They don't exist in just one service or one service here. And so this is sort of an illustrative of the concept of collective impact. It's not the same thing, but the concept is the same, which is basically that it takes a lot of people, organizations, all kind of cross sector to support our fellow community members. So going back to the big picture a bit, Waikīkī Community Center, this was our target population. It was ALICE adults age 50 or better. So these are just some statistics. Almost half of the ALICE households are headed by adults 50 plus. And about 37% of seniors are in the ALICE group. This is according to the original report. And like Lisa said, I'm gonna guess that since the pandemic, that percentage has gone up substantially. Just some statistics, general statistics about senior or older adults in Hawaii. This is from a DBED report. And it's basically showing us that the general population of Hawaii is expected to grow by X%, right? These kind of smaller yellow triangles, whereas the largest growth in group is the 85 plus group over the next 30 years or so. So this is going to be an issue. And just some short research from the National Council of Aging and others. The best practice for seniors to remain well and independent for as long as possible is whole person wellness. And the goal is to really prevent premature institutionalization. And the Congressional Budget Office, among other institutions, have acknowledged that we are unable to support this hyper growth, because this is Hawaii, but this is also a national trend, probably not as pronounced as this, but it's a national trend. We will not be able to support that growth without some kind of major shift in strategy. One of them being prevention of illness and wellness and keeping well, and along with other strategies. So basically our program has been operating by matching and coordinating and leveraging resources from all over the community. We work with private citizens, volunteers, businesses, government agencies, other nonprofits, and we put together a plan of, we put together resources to help each individual senior move forward. So we have a dual focus on both whole person wellness as well as crisis prevention and case management. These are just some of our outcomes from a couple years back. We do have similar outcomes from 2020, but that actually data is a little bit, this data is probably better because we were able to survey more people in it. 2020 was obviously a very unusual year, so our surveys weren't, I don't think were as many, as numerous, so I'm giving you these results. People, the seniors felt they learned new things, they're more active, they felt more independent, and they were more knowledgeable about the resources that were available to them. So I just want to end by putting up again a picture of Salitha. She loves to crochet, and so that little over mask you see on her face, the face covering over her mask, she made that. And I just want to say again how her case, you know, when you look at these things, all the issues that she faced and everyone that was involved with putting her on stable footing. And like I said, she was able to finally get into stable, affordable housing. About last year, we put her into a lottery, and she was able to get an affordable unit in a mixed income project, in the one in Ala Moana, near Ala Moana. And so she's finally in permanent, affordable, stable housing. And so she's been, we've helped her with other things through the pandemic, and she's really thriving now. So we're grateful to all of our partners and collaborators, and we value, it's really our work with individual seniors has really helped us to appreciate and value even more the importance of the concept and the practice of collective impact. So we're very thankful to be a part of this group and working with our fellow nonprofits and Aloha United Way. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Caroline. So happy to have heard from you. For those that were asking in the chat, if you are interested in getting a copy of the presentation afterwards, it will be made available. We will put it on our website. So we'll provide that link to you, which will actually be coming in a post-event email. As well, if you have any questions that have come up for Caroline or for any of our other presenters, please drop it into the Q&A box, and we will be sharing at the very end. Next, I would like to introduce Parents and Children Together CEO Ryan Kusumoto, as well as Don Kurisu, who's the VP of Strategy and Innovation.
Thanks, Lisa. How's it, everybody? I hope everyone's doing well. I'm Ryan Kusumoto, as Lisa mentioned, and along by my side is Don Kurisu, our VP of Strategy and Innovation. Thank you for having us here to talk about our partnership with AUW and our work on this ALICE initiative. You know, our work was really focused around strategies to bring more people to the table and to better understand what our ALICE families go through, and really to better understand what poverty is. So the hope is that by better understanding, we all can come up with better solutions to address these issues. Probably the best way for us to share this work that we've been doing is to share with you some of the stories. We have a brief video of some stories of the people that we've been serving through this collaborative. Genevieve, could you play the video, please?
ALICE, Asset Limited Income Employed. ALICE households have an income level above the federal poverty level, yet they often are unable to afford the combined costs of basic housing, childcare, food, transportation, and healthcare. Families with income below the ALICE threshold exist in every ethnic group in the state and comprise 43 to 55% of households in every county. ALICE has many faces,
I am Alice.
I am Alice.
Here's Chantel, a shop owner who has lived in Kuhio Park Terrace her entire life. Her husband is a plumber, and together they're raising 3 keiki. Despite hard work and a dedication to family, they've not been able to make the leap to financial independence.
I'm Alice.
I am Alice.
I am Alice.
Marlene and her husband Huli have been together for 30 years and have raised 6 beautiful children. Marlene supervises a community-based youth program while her husband is a gym coordinator. And one of their daughters, Kahea, and her children, Kuhio and Kylie, live at home with them. Despite having full-time jobs, Marlene and Huli's long-term goal of becoming homeowners, it seems out of reach. And with 10 grandchildren in tow, they can't help but think about what the future has in store for the next generation. The struggles that Alice households face have consequences for all of us. This initiative calls on all of us to come together as a community to effect a systems-wide change that will lead to a better Hawaii for everyone.
Are you Alice? Do you know Alice? Do you employ Alice? As a result of COVID-19, we may be looking at as much as 60% of our population in Hawaii being Alice. PACT is using specially designed programs to support our Alice employees and families in Hawaii. These include the Bridges Out of Poverty initiative and our Getting Ahead program. Bridges Out of Poverty uses the lens of economic class and provides concrete tools and strategies for a community to prevent, reduce, and alleviate individual and community instability. The Getting Ahead program is an internationally recognized curriculum developed by AHA Process, dedicated to enabling individuals, institutions, and communities to stabilize and grow resources for all, particularly for those living in daily instability. The Getting Ahead program encourages participants to create their own success by assessing current resources, exploring the conditions at home, work, and in the community, and seeing how they impact personal stability, investigating how to build resources and relationships that open doors, utilizing practical skills for dealing with change and creating stability at work and at home, understanding the hidden rules and language of getting ahead in the workplace, intentionally creating and following a plan for a positive future story. The impact of the program is best told through our own Alice participant stories.
This program's changed my whole perspective about my life and how I see my role as a community member. I've realized that resources are not just financial, and that I can build many different resources that'll benefit me on my road to getting ahead.
I reduced my monthly debt by 28%. And increase my income by pursuing a talent that brings me additional income. I'm now realistically working towards home ownership, something that's been a goal of mine for a while.
At work, I utilize my skills to take more initiative, engage proactively with my supervisor, which eventually led me to being offered a promotion. In my personal life, I was able to connect with different people and resources who could help me on my journey to moving ahead. I have been able to take better control of my finances and was able to actively bring down my personal debt so that I feel more financially sound and less overwhelmed and stressed.
From my participation in Getting Ahead, I was encouraged to explore my personal finances in a way that I hadn't before. I learned a lot. It made me take the leap towards opening up a bank account for the first time in my entire life. I learned that it was important to understand my financial situation and work towards stability.
I decreased my monthly debt by 10% and my overall debt by 35% since participating in the cohort. I was able to finally make the long-awaited switch from my job to helping to run and grow our family business. Making this switch has allowed me the opportunity to take on new leadership roles at both my children's school and in our community.
During the Getting Ahead cohort,
I was engaged in an earnest personal inquiry of what would be a truly satisfying career that matched my strengths and desires. I am the first member of my family to pursue post-high school education, and I am now enrolled in Hawaii Medical College this term.
There are many stories like these that encourage us to believe that there is a positive future story for all of us, where we need not ask ourselves,
will I be Alice? Will I be Alice?
Let's change the system together.
So our video shared stories about the impact of our work with employees and individuals. For community groups, organizations, and executives, we also provide learning opportunities through poverty simulations and Bridges for Leader trainings. And with these trainings, organizations and businesses have refined practices to better serve employees and clients, increase employee engagement and retention, even innovated to better support low-wage workers, and even partnered with us to provide getting ahead for their employees. We're also working on building our capacity to support employers by providing on-site resource coordinators at workplaces to support employees. So if any of these offerings interest you or you're interested in learning more, please reach out and we'd be happy to share more information. Next slide.
Finally, we just wanted to highlight that through our partnership with AUW on this ALICE initiative, we've been able to form and leverage new partnerships. We were able to work together with the National Doris Duke Charitable Foundation to amplify our work in Kalihi and bring in over $1 million of additional funds to Hawaii. We also had opportunities to work with our cohort partners in this ALICE initiative. We are piloting a program right now to provide low interest microloans so that individuals would not have to seek out higher interest rate options that would keep them further in financial instability. And we are partnering with Feed the Hunger Foundation, one of our ALICE cohort colleagues who will be speaking right after us. And I would defer to them to talk more about that program. And with that, thank you for your time today and your interest in and dedication to ensure that everyone here in our islands can thrive. Mahalo.
Mahalo, Ryan and Dawn. Appreciate your time and appreciate the information. For anyone who has any questions, please drop it into the Q&A box. And in the meantime, next I'd like to introduce Erin Ellis, who's the Senior Loan Officer for Feed the Hunger Fund.
Hello. Thank you, Ryan and Don, and thank you everyone for joining us today. We are excited about this upcoming collaboration with PACT, and we are looking for more opportunities to collaborate. We love helping our community access capital to address their needs. Next slide, please. When we collectively prioritize purchasing from local producers, we are all investing in and helping to solve for Alice. When was the last time you bought produce from a local farmer? Do you make purchasing from local producers a priority? I know that my family tries to prioritize purchasing local, but we could do better. Sometimes we are challenged by access, convenience, cost, and dietary fit. These are some of the challenges that Feed the Hunger Fund tries to address in our work. Next slide. Thank you. Aloha, my name is Erin Ellis, and this is our team at Feed the Hunger Fund. We are a small community development financial institution specializing in servicing small businesses in Hawaii's food and agricultural sector. Since 2010, Feed the Hunger Fund has provided nearly $400 million in debt capital to 74 farmers, ranchers, processors, and distributors in Hawaii's food system. In the last 4 years, we have also provided technical assistance to over 500 individuals and enterprises, including our borrowers. Next slide, please. Our loans typically range from $2,000 to $250,000. We serve a diverse group of borrowers. 47% of our borrowers are women, while nationally, only 31% of women are small business owners. And we are providing capital support to over 9 subsectors within the food system. Next slide, please. The Alice community is an integral part of Hawaii's food systems. Today, over 75% of all food producers working in Hawaii make less than $50,000 per year. Many small local producers and their employees are sadly often working paycheck to paycheck. And this reality has most likely increased as a result of COVID. Next slide, please. Access to capital is a challenge for many of our borrowers. 45% are at or below the Alice annual household income level. 25% of our borrowers are above Alice, but below 80% of the annual median household income of their county. All of this is to say that the people producing the food we eat can barely feed themselves. Over the past 11 years, thank you. Over the past 11 years, we have seen how access to capital that accommodates the dynamics of agriculture can be a game changer for these small farmers, moving them from a subsistence to a thriving enterprise, from a farmer's market to a brick and mortar restaurant and more. I would like to share the first cut of a video we are working on to help tell the story of our borrowers. Yeah, next slide now, please. Thank you.
Feed the Hunger Fund was started to alleviate hunger and poverty, and we do it through a platform of microfinance.
Feed the Hunger became aware of Istanbul through our friends and partners, the Greenwheel Food Hub. They were taking their farmers market stand and converting it into this really nice restaurant, and we were able to help them, finance that dream. It was a long, hard road for them to get there. They had a lot of obstacles. COVID happened right when they were about to have their opening, and oh my goodness. But yeah, they did it, and you can go and eat at their restaurant now.
Hi, I'm Shandis from Feed the Hunger Fund, and this is the story of Istanbul Restaurant.
My mom has been a chef for a long time, and I always grew up eating great food. I was diagnosed by PTSD and all those issues. When doctors were giving me drugs, my mom said, no, you're not gonna be doing that. We will just gonna make you a great food. We will nurture you and nourish you, and you will be just fine. Cooking with her started to inspire me again, started to make me feel good again. And of course, her food healed me. We started to share our food with our neighbors. And one of my neighbors told me, you have to get a farmer's market stand and share this food with people, this love with people. That is actually how it all started. I decided to get a stand with my mom at the farmer's market, and people loved our food. Because I love cooking with my mom so much. I found out I no longer have symptoms of depression anymore. Of course, having good food, love, and cooking basically nourished me, healed me out of my depression. And I told my mom, let's open the best restaurant in Honolulu then and share this with people in Honolulu. But of course, opening business in Honolulu is not easy, especially if you are starting from the ground, if you don't have anybody to, invest in you. When we first started, all we had was just our own personal money. Basically, most of our retirements, we had to put everything in one basket to make this work. And that was scary because every day I was thinking, if this doesn't work, what my parents will gonna do. There was always this idea in the back of your mind, no matter whatever you do, what if it doesn't work? We were thinking we probably not gonna make it, and Out of nowhere, two people from farmers market, they suggested Feed the Hunger Fund to us. And they told us they are willing to have people like us who has a dream, who is supporting local farmers, who is working very hard. And when I reach out to Feed the Hunger Fund, I explain my ideas to them and what I am doing. They were very happy to have me, and they filled the gap, the financial gap I needed to make this work. They were very human to work with, and that was a great experience. Istanbul's mission is feeding you with love and Turkish food, nourish you and nurture you with food, supporting as much as local products possible, because we started from farmers market. We have a great relationship with local farmers. Everything we make here is handmade. I think that is very special because you're having authentic, handmade Turkish food. We are not just making food, but we are also making art, and we are making it with love. I think that is why we are successful.
Hiç vazgeçmesinler, inandıkları şey gerçekten oluyor. Ben buraya inancımı ve sevgimi koydum.
If you love what you are doing and believe in yourself, keep moving forward, it will happen.
Feed the Hunger Fund.
Oh, yeah. So I was always wondering what her mother was saying there, but it sounds like the transcript says, take them a little bamboo. Anyway, we met this family and closed their loan in 2019. And, we worked with them through a few storms, including COVID, to help ensure the successful opening of the restaurant. They are now operating at 75% capacity under the current COVID restrictions and are employing 30 people and have paid off their loan. So Feed the Hunger Fund is part of the solution to a bigger problem. Michael Schumann, in his Principles for Post-COVID Reconstruction, makes the case for local ownership, which is proven to historically drive local jobs and local independence. He cites local investment in infrastructure and small local businesses as key to economic self-reliance. Supporting businesses that are regenerative, especially in an island economy, means that we are working to live within our means. Are we innovating to address the social and environmental headwinds that are extractive? And are we making sure no one is left behind? Studies by the Federal Reserve indicate that communities with high densities of local businesses have higher per capita incomes and less inequality. More social equity equates to higher per capita incomes. This is what Feed the Hunger Fund is working to achieve in Hawaii. When we help a producer through our loan product to increase their earned revenue, producers reinvest this back into their employees, into new hires, and into infrastructure. When we, Feed the Hunger Fund, are able to access low-interest debt capital and operational grants that offset our administrative costs to service these loans, we can significantly increase our loan portfolio. There are over 5,000 small producers, processors, and distributors of food in Hawaii, but currently we are only set up to lend to approximately 25 per year. We need to do better, and you can help us. Next slide, please. Our vision for Hawaii's producers, which is shared by a growing group of supporters like you, is one of shared risk, financial security, and resilience. Our vision requires, but also empowers, consumers, investors, lenders, and grant makers to work together to provide the right blend of financial capital and technical support to address ALICE and food insecurity in Hawaii. That's us. Mahalo. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Aaron. We appreciate it. For anybody who has questions for Aaron or for any of our attendees, please go ahead and in that bottom tray down there, enter them into the Q&A box. In the meantime, while we wait for some more questions to come in and before we start our panel, we would like to also survey our audience today on what you heard today that's going to make a difference. So following this event, what steps will you take to impact Alice? This could be in your individual life. This could be in your workplace. This could be in a collaboration that you are part of. But what are some of the ways that you see yourself taking steps to make impact? And we'll give you a little bit of time to go ahead and answer. So for those of you who are selecting multiple options, we are definitely interested in seeing what all you feel your next steps would be. Before the end of this event as well, we will be putting a link to a survey in the chat that will ask you if you'd like to get involved with some of these steps, how to get in touch with you. Please also look for a follow-up email coming after this event that will be collecting some information from you, including that same survey. Okay, looks like about 2/3 of you have had the chance to participate. I'll give you just about 3 more seconds to select any that are interesting to you. And looks like following this event, the majority of you are interested in sharing information or resources you learned today. And we're really excited about that. That is really the goal of this, to be able to help people understand what the impact is of Alice and how you can help get involved. The vision is collective amongst all of us, and it really takes people getting involved with it to make those next steps. Some of those next steps as well, 39% of you intend to invite someone to the next Alice Conversation series. We will be sharing with you how to register for the next ones if you haven't yet already. About 1/3 of you plan to talk to your organizational leadership board or stakeholders. Very happy to see that 53% are going to take a look at the Alice report. It does have much more in-depth information about all of the data that was shared today. And we're happy to know that some of you will be reaching out to us to get involved, look at your own workplace equity and inclusion around Alice, as well as building support through public policy or legislation, which will be the topic of our 3rd event in this series. So thank you again for taking the time to participate in that. We would like to go ahead and open it up now to share some questions that have come in from our audience. A couple kind of first off the bat questions we had, which are easy to answer for you. There was a question about how to access the economic data. First of all, following this event, like I mentioned, all of these slides will be posted on, the recording will be posted on the Alice Conversation Series page. We will be including a link to that in the follow-up email that you get. And a question as well about where to access information about the Alice report. We'll put a link into the chat, but if you visit auw.org, which is our primary website, we do have an Alice page. The previous Alice report is located in there. It came out in 2017. The 2020 report is posted there as well. And the question was, is there a 3rd Alice post-COVID update planned? Yes, we are just in the process right now of working with the researchers as well as our research advisory committee, which is made up of local experts, to help gather that data and put it together. And so like we said, we have this data modeling which is in place, but we know the impact is pretty significant. So with that said, some other questions that have come up for our panelists. A couple questions for Hawaii Data Collaborative. Nick or Adrian, who's also joining us from HDC, question about how do you weight families for whom English is not a first language, or older individuals who do not text with the Ohana Pulse? And another question about that, will the Ohana Pulse survey be offered in languages other than English?
Thanks, Lisa, and thanks to those who submitted those questions. Really good questions. Right now, we are in the prototyping phases of the building out the Ohana Pulse, and we're getting ready to pilot. At this time, the platform only provides surveys in English, and that's because we're still kind of making sure that the platform itself and the technology behind it is working well, and the data flows are going well, and things like that. Once we feel good about that, we'll be working to address both accessibility challenges and the specific accessibility challenge around language. And as I'm sure everybody kind of knows, it's not just a translation exercise, but a meaning translation exercise. And then for research purposes, making sure that the meanings are aligned across the languages that we're using to put out the pulse survey. So we'll want to make sure we're very careful about that and take that on in a very intentional way.
Thanks, Nick. We had another question about, and this is a question for all of our panelists, but can you provide an example of the most impactful services or support programs that you currently see as missing in the community? Invite any of our panelists to start first.
I think that we've got most of them in place. My comment would be an amplification of those services. I think that maybe not enough people are being reached. And then, from my perspective, financial literacy is something we could always do more of. Thank you.
I would like to comment on that quickly. I would just say it's more of a coordination of services. I think that services are not, many services are provided in silos. And when you look at the whole person, they have multiple needs at one time. And our system of service is not set up for that type of service. So we actually have a service just almost solely to connect services, which is kind of crazy, but that's I would say that's what's probably missing the most.
Thank you, Caroline. Any of our other panelists want to comment on that question about examples of the most impactful services or support programs that you see as missing?
I would just add maybe that I think that we, kind of going along with what Aaron was saying, I mean, there's a lot of, not a lot, there's important safety net work that's happening out there in the community. And I think we need to amplify some of that. I would say maybe another area that we need to really focus on is continuing to build community and making sure we're building it from the voices of our community members and making sure those programs are designed around what they feel they need and how do we best empower those communities to thrive on their own. I think sometimes we develop these programs a lot of times without those voices, and I think the more we can develop and build community through that means, I think we'll be continue to make good impact in the community.
Excellent. We have another question. In your opinion, how can businesses or the business sector best support nonprofit work for Alice?
I can go on this one. I would say, well, of course, we could always say, how can we amplify the work? But we could always use funding. But I would say, take a look internally. Look at your workforce. Look at the people that are part of your organization, and take a look at economic status or economic class as an issue that could potentially impact workforce productivity. And how best can you, as an organization, support the people that are coming to work every day and doing the good work for you. Oftentimes we don't think about the economic instability impacting work productivity, but that has a huge impact. We've been polling a number of different communities, and it's those types of things that weigh on folks that impact the day-to-day work and the day-to-day interactions. And I would say that I think that's someplace that there are things that organizations can do to support their employees. It's not just increasing wages, but there's other supports that you could put in place to support them.
Another question came in. Each of you mentioned financial literacy as a resource for your clients. How do you facilitate something like that in your respective areas? Do you do it via your employees, volunteers, partnerships?
I think for us at Feed the Hunger, it's really begins at the intake when somebody's applying for a loan. There's a bunch of documents that you have to provide, and if you don't have them, that becomes apparent. So at that stage, we work with them to develop, from pro forma financial statements to ensuring their taxes are properly filed, building out monthly budgets to understand their finances better. If those are things that they haven't structured yet. So yeah.
I would add to Lisa, through our Getting Ahead program, similar to what Aaron said, is part of it is helping people to explore their finances in a way that they haven't before, right? Some people just haven't had the opportunity, haven't learned those skills, haven't had the practice of doing that. So working with them, but also partnering with experts like Feed the Hunger Fund, who can also help to provide some of that technical assistance to individuals. And then partnering with businesses and financial institutions, people who have that expertise, and being able to support individuals in that way.
Thank you.
So for our area, it's a challenge for us because of the language barrier, but when that happened, they're always willing to provide the documents that we need so they can get help. We partner with School of Law to come and do a presentation. Some other areas or agencies that we invite to come and explain on how to do a proper budgeting, and savings. But it is a challenge because many of them are not even willing or able to see because of the embarrassment of how little money they make. But because we're accessible to them, we try to build a relationship with them so that they keep the trust for them to be helped.
Thank you. We had another question on the Ohana Pulse survey. Are there any plans for the survey to be used to measure public opinion? For example, could it be used to poll on ALICE priorities like a living wage, public support for childcare, early learning, et cetera?
Thanks, Lisa, and thank you for the attendee who asked that question. We did respond to it, but I'll just speak to it briefly here, which is probably not. I mean, there's certainly a gray area where, the kind of needs assessment versus polling could play a role. And right now we've designed for needs assessment. So, what are you struggling with as a household, which would be really good for partners to understand how they could be more helpful. And in between is what would make a difference for you kinds of questions, which is a little different than what should be done. And so I think that's kind of the gray area we'll be navigating as we continue to roll the platform out.
Thanks, Nick. And we're just about out of time right now, but we do have just a couple questions. And in the chat, we'll be dropping a link to the survey, which we invite you to participate in as well. It'll be coming to you in an email post-event. But one more question, is there a way to look at whether there is a greater savings rate among those who have access to payroll savings and those who do not? Is there anyone on this panel that can speak to that about payroll savings and a greater savings rate?
I mean, I can't speak to payroll savings, but we can, we look at, net worth and the, the balance sheet of borrowers. And that's something that, we look at, but it's not the question you're asking.
I will say too, in our next event in this series, which is coming up last week of July, we will be talking about and exploring some of those opportunities for the accrual of wealth and some of the programs that are available through our ALICE partner agencies. So definitely, if that's an area of interest to you, we invite you to join us for the next session. Another question that came up was regarding the population. So knowing that some ALICE families are actually houseless, for those of you who are serving ALICE programs, do you have any that are targeting the houseless population? Are they included in this work? And another question adjacent to that, how do you think serving ALICE families is different than serving those that are living below ALICE in the poverty line, below the poverty line?
So the Feed the Hunger Fund, we're typically funding businesses. So we don't directly often get to address people that are, houseless or well below the poverty line. We do have borrowers that are below the poverty line, and we work with them. Often it's credit counseling and building up, doing microloans, building up a relationship and bigger loans. So that does exist. The difference, I guess, is often their credit management, or really their access to capital, right? The reason they've got bad debt is because they needed cash and they didn't have another way to get to it. And so I think working with them to really manage plans to solve that issue for them, that's perhaps a difference that I would see.
Thanks, Aaron. We had another question that came in just in regards to building a partnership to build a service network for referrals. And is AUW considering something like that? I would say that yes, part of the work that Aloha United Way is focused on as far as the backbone organization for this collective impact work is looking at ways that we can help convene entities as well as collaborate amongst programs and organizations to help find ways for those channels to work and where those referrals may connect. In our next session in the series, you will hear about some of those programs where we've had individuals and clients coming through and working between agencies to be able to get the supports that they need to ultimately help them get financially stable. And again, invite you to join us for that. Another question that came up was in regards to public policy and knowing that a living wage is an ALICE priority with broad popular support. How are we working to make that happen? I definitely invite you to join us for a much longer discussion on that for our third ALICE session, which will be in August. So that focus of those next couple ones. So again, the last week of July, we'll be talking about the impact of COVID, what that economic recovery looks like for us, how the data has changed, how families have been impacted, and as well, how the programs that have been part of this ALICE initiative have had to adjust and pivot to be able to support what has been kind of a landslide of needs for individuals. And then again, for the third in this summer conversation series, we will be talking about public policy and advocacy, and we'll be hearing from our public policy groups that are being funded through this ALICE work and the efforts that they have made this past year or the past few years, the bills that have been part of the ALICE package, and what we really need to see in terms of public policy. So with that said, once again, I want to thank everyone for being here so much. If any of our panelists have any other final comments to make, I definitely invite you to unmute and share. And while you do that, if you're interested in the chat, please notice once again, we do have a link to the survey, which we invite you to take. The link to the information and the registration for all the sessions is there. That it will also have a recording of all of the sessions, including this one. So as soon as that is live and ready, it will be available online. So feel free to watch it, to share it. And again, please take a moment when you can to let us know how this information impacted you and how you would like to get involved. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you to our panelists. We appreciate your time and we appreciate the interest in the community. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you very much. Aloha.